Welcome, everyone. Today we're diving deep into the roots of Christianity, is Eastern Orthodoxy closer to the original Christianity?
That's a fascinating crossroads in history.
Right.
It seems like there's a lot of forbidden knowledge and controversy surrounding this question.
Absolutely. The idea is that, while most folks think the Catholic Church is the original Christianity, there are over 200 million adherents in the Eastern Orthodox Church who argue that Rome hijacked the true faith.
And it all starts with the messy, early years of Christianity, right? Groups clashing over Torah observance, differences in how to understand discipleship, and even hidden gospels from the Gnostics.
Exactly. Those first and second centuries were a real melting pot. Jewish Christians, Pauline Christians, Gnostics, Marcionites. It was, very diverse. By the time Orthodoxy emerged, it was more like the survivor, which is kind of what Bart Ehrman emphasizes.
Yep. So what really sets Eastern Orthodoxy apart from Catholicism in this light?
Well, there are several key aspects. Let's start with authority. In Orthodoxy, leadership is shared by councils of bishops. The Patriarch of Constantinople holds a first among equals role, sort of like the head of the table, but not a dictator. In contrast, the Catholic Church is built around the Pope's supreme power, especially with papal infallibility defined much later in 1870.
Right. That structural difference really does seem to reflect a more collective approach in the East versus a centralized model in the West.
Yeah, and it doesn't stop there. Language and culture play a huge role too. The Eastern tradition clings to Greek as a fundamental element, both because the New Testament was originally in Greek and because their theology sat comfortably within Greek philosophy. Meanwhile, the Catholic tradition shifted to Latin, which, some argue, distanced it from the original cultural context.
That's an intriguing point. So it's almost like one church stayed true to its linguistic roots while the other evolved in line with imperial expansion and legal structures?
Exactly. It's like the Orthodox liturgy of St. John Chrysostom and St. Basil, which are still used today, connect believers directly with an ancient ritual. On the Catholic side, particularly after medieval reforms, the Mass evolved into something more streamlined and arguably more legalistic.
So the liturgical difference points to a deeper divergence in the way each tradition experiences worship.
Right. And then there's the theology of salvation. Eastern Orthodoxy emphasizes theosis, basically the idea of becoming one with God through transformation. It's far more mystical. Catholicism, in contrast, treated salvation with more of a courtroom metaphor: guilt, punishment, and satisfaction, especially after Anselm's formulation in the 11th century.
I have to ask, though, isn't it a bit too simplistic to say one is purely mystical and the other legalistic? I mean, aren't there nuances on both sides?
That's a fair challenge. Yes, nuances do exist. But when you look at core theological priorities, the Eastern focus on theosis really stands apart from Catholic legalism. What's more, the difference in views on clergy further underscores these distinctions.
Interesting. Oh, you mean how the Eastern tradition allows priests to marry, which aligns more with the New Testament context since even Peter had a wife, right?
Yes, exactly. It's like, Orthodox tradition preserves some practices exactly as they were in early times, except bishops remain celibate. Meanwhile, Catholic norms of mandatory priestly celibacy only solidified from the 12th century onward.
It's remarkable, almost as if the Orthodox model kept a closer thread to early Christian traditions, even if its identity was later shaped by empire and councils.
That's the nuance. Speaking of councils, there's also how doctrinal development diverged. The Orthodox Church typically stops at the first 7 ecumenical councils from 325 to 787 CE, whereas Catholicism went on to add dogmas way later, like the Immaculate Conception and papal infallibility.
So, in many ways, Orthodoxy deliberately avoids later doctrinal innovations, trying to stick to what they believe was the original apostolic consensus.
Exactly. though one twist is that even Orthodoxy isn't a perfect recreation of first-century Christianity. By the time its identity was solidified, the faith had already been reshaped by councils and the influence of empire.
Yeah. That's an important point. No branch is a pure time capsule of Jesus' original movement.
True. Both traditions are children of empire, deeply intertwined with politics. In the East, you had Caesaropapism, where emperors influenced doctrine. In the West, popes battled with kings and emperors for control.
And speaking of influential events, the Great Schism of 1054 was a bombshell moment, especially with the Filioque clause being inserted into the Nicene Creed by Rome.
Right on. That addition, claiming that the Spirit proceeds from the Father and the Son, was seen as heretical by the Eastern side. And, don't forget the Crusader sack of Constantinople in 1204, which remains, for many Orthodox believers, an unforgivable betrayal.
Absolutely. So, essentially, the debate is whether Eastern Orthodoxy, with its shared authority, use of Greek, ancient liturgical forms, mystical salvation, and even more traditional clergy practices, is closer to the Christianity of the Apostles.
Exactly. In many aspects, like preserving the conciliar model and maintaining ancient rituals, it seems to be closer.
Yeah.
But as we've noted, by the time these identities formed, Christianity had already evolved significantly.
So, can we really say one is more authentic than the other? Or are they just different reflections of a very complex historical evolution?
That's the big question. It's almost like, neither side has a pristine, untouched version of first-century Christianity. The East preserved more of the ancient DNA, while Rome reinvented the faith in a way that suited the imperial model.
Interesting point. But then, isn't it a bit problematic to idealize one over the other? I mean, don't both branches, in their own way, reflect the diversity of early Christianity?
Exactly, and that's where the debate gets, really fascinating. Both are, in essence, rival heirs of a shattered, multifaceted tradition. The Eastern tradition holds on to a mystical, council-based, Greek-rooted practice, while the Western one is more structured around centralized papal power and later
That's a
doctrinal
nuanced
developments.
viewpoint. And both have been shaped by their historical circumstances, whether it's Byzantine politics or medieval power struggles.
Yep. It's like trying to pick which family recipe is closer to what your great-grandma made, when both have evolved with every generation, but one still keeps the original spices and flavors a bit more intact.
I love that analogy. That really paints the picture. So, if someone's asking, is Orthodoxy closer to the original Christianity? What would be the takeaway?
The takeaway is that in several key areas, liturgical practices, language, conciliar authority, and even the approach to clergy, Eastern Orthodoxy does retain elements that scholars argue are more aligned with early Christian practices.
But at the same time, we need to respect that even Orthodoxy is a product of its time, shaped through centuries of theological development and political influence.
Right. It isn't a return to a flawless first-century model, it's merely a closer echo of that original sound, if you will.
It's just so intriguing how Christianity, from the very beginning, was never a monolith, but rather this evolving tapestry of beliefs and practices.
Exactly. And that makes discussions like these so rich. Every tradition is layered with history, culture, and political intricacies. Even if Orthodoxy seems purer in some respects, it's still very much a result of centuries of evolution.
And isn't that what makes diving into history so fascinating? You peel back one layer, and you discover even more complexity beneath.
Absolutely. It's like peeling an onion. You might shed a tear, but you get to see all these different layers that together tell a much bigger story.
Exactly. I really appreciate this examination. It challenges our assumptions and invites us to rethink what original really means in the context of faith.
Right, and while these debates might never be fully settled, they encourage us to look at Christianity as a living, breathing tradition rather than a static relic from the past.
Yep, that's well put. And that, I think, is a key message. Both Eastern Orthodoxy and Catholicism are complex, deeply historical traditions that owe their form not just to ancient practices, but to centuries of adaptation and change.
Exactly. Each represents a different branch of the family tree of faith, and both carry invaluable insights into the evolution of Christian thought and practice.
Absolutely. Thanks for this deep dive. It really gives us plenty to ponder about the origins, the evolution, and the intricate tapestry that is Christianity.
Indeed. Thanks for tuning in. Keep exploring those deep histories and never stop questioning the narratives that define our traditions.